Aita, drama, secrets, confessions. Welcome to Tale Trove Reddit.
That night, we gathered in an old wooden house at the edge of town, the one everyone whispered about, the one with the haunted attic. I never really believed in that kind of stuff, but it was my friends' crazy excitement that pulled me in. One of them suddenly came up with a game, 3 knocks, 3 questions. If something answers, we have to keep going until it stops. Sounds silly, right? But when we all looked at each other, our eyes lit up with a mix of fear and thrill. I knew I couldn't back out. The game sounded harmless enough. Just ask and wait. But the moment I set foot on the creaking wooden stairs leading up to the attic, a strange feeling crawled over me. Something was already waiting up there. And if you were me, would you dare take another step? Do you want to know what happens when the game truly begins? Hit that subscribe button right now, because you won't want to miss a single moment of the terrifying journey ahead. Follow along as I uncover the secrets of the death game where every knock could be an invitation from the other side. So tell me, are you ready to play? I remember that night clearly. The whole attic was pitch black, swallowing every trace of light. The flashlight in my hand flickered, its weak batteries betraying me on purpose. The air was thick, icy cold, as if hundreds of unseen eyes were staring straight at me. Then suddenly, knock. 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 3 knocks echoed from the wooden ceiling. Slow. Heavy, loud enough to make my heart nearly burst out of my chest. At first, I thought maybe it was a rat. But think about it, have you ever seen a rat knock in perfect rhythm, like it's trying to send you a signal? I held my breath. The sound came again. Knock. 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 This time faster, more urgent, almost as if it knew I was listening. A chill ran down my spine. I asked myself, if it isn't a rat, then who's up there? I fixed my eyes on the ceiling. And I swear, for the briefest moment, a shadow slid across the cracks in the wood, like something was crawling right above me. My heart pounded wildly. And one chilling thought echoed in my mind, what if someone, or something, has been trapped in this attic long before we ever moved in? Right after those strange knocks, I noticed an old, worn piece of paper fall from the ceiling, almost as if someone had deliberately dropped it for me. With trembling hands, I picked it up. On the paper, faded black ink spelled out, "If you want to leave this attic alive, you must play our game. Hear the knocks, answer by knocking back. Miss the rhythm, lose your life." I froze. No way. A deadly game. But why me? Who wrote this note? And how long had it been waiting here? The knocking came again. Knock. Knock. Knock, like it was urging me to decide quickly. I hesitated, then raised my hand and knocked back on the wooden floor. Knock. 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 In that instant, the whole attic seemed to tremble, like some unseen force was grinning because I had stepped into its rules. I couldn't stop myself from wondering, has anyone ever played this game? And lost? Or am I the first fool to risk everything? Would you dare try? If you heard 3 strange knocks in your own house, would you knock back? And hey, if you're curious to see what happens next, hit that subscribe button right now. Because from this moment on, the game has only just begun. Right after I knocked 3 times in reply, the entire attic sank into a suffocating silence. My eyes locked onto the darkness ahead, heart racing wildly, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Then, knock. Knock. Only 2 knocks. Different from the 3 at the start. A chill shot down my spine. It was answering me. But why 2 knocks? Could this be some kind of signal, some language I was being forced to decode? I tried knocking back twice. And this time, the darkness at the far end of the attic seemed to move. A faint, stretched out shadow slithered forward from between the rotting wooden beams. I held my breath. Something, or someone, was playing this game with me. And the only question pounding in my head was, if I answer the wrong rhythm, will I live long enough to escape this place? I didn't even have the chance to knock again before another sound broke out. Not knocking this time, but laughter. A faint, broken laugh, as if someone was trying to hold it back but couldn't resist. Ha! 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 Each beat of laughter echoed through the pitch-black attic like hundreds of people whispering behind me all at once. I spun my flashlight around, sweeping the beam everywhere. But there was nothing, just dust and old, forgotten belongings. So where was that laughter coming from? From inside the walls? Or from inside my own head? I stumbled backward, heart pounding, my hand shaking so hard I nearly dropped the flashlight. Then suddenly, the laughter stopped. And instead, a raspy voice spoke, right by my ear, "Your turn. Now." I screamed, but my voice was instantly swallowed by the darkness. Am I really taking part in a game, or have I been pulled into some horrific ritual? What do you think? If it were you, would you keep playing, or run away immediately? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to catch the next part, because this story is only just beginning. After the laughter, the attic fell into absolute silence. So silent that I could hear the rush of blood pounding in my ears. I didn't dare breathe too loudly, only swept the flashlight slowly across the darkness ahead, and then I saw it. A number, carved deep into the old wooden wall. The number 7. It wasn't messy handwriting. They were brutal marks, gouged in as if some invisible hand had clawed and slashed to leave its imprint. I shivered. Why the number 7? I reached out to touch it. Ice cold. The very moment my fingertip brushed the surface, I heard that familiar knocking again. 3 knocks. Then silence. Then 3 knocks again. 7 knocks. 7 times. 7 lives? The thought shot through my mind like lightning. Could this be the real rule of the game? I spun around. On the ceiling, more numbers began to etch themselves into the wood. 2, 3, 4. Each one flickering and twisting under the beam of my flashlight. The question is, were those numbers counting down? Or counting up? The numbers on the wall didn't stop. They kept spreading, carving deeper into the wooden beams as if an invisible blade was furiously tearing the attic apart. I stared, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would explode. Then, in the middle of that chaos, a line of words appeared. 1 life. For the game to continue. I froze. 1 life? Did that mean someone had to be sacrificed? The knocking came again, this time more frantic, more violent. The door behind me shook violently as if something was trying to break in. From the shadows, I caught sight of a small wooden box rolling out from the corner of the attic. I opened it. Inside was a rusty knife, its tip gleaming as if freshly sharpened. My breath caught in my throat. Was this the offering? If I didn't use it, would the numbers keep counting? Endlessly? A question drilled straight into my skull. Will I be the one to sacrifice? Or the next victim? What about you? Would you dare to pick up that knife? And if you want to know what happens next, don't forget to hit subscribe, because this story is only getting darker, and the real horror has yet to begin. I froze in place. The knife in my hand felt impossibly heavy, so cold it was like the steel was draining the blood from my veins. That wooden table hadn't just appeared by chance. It was deliberate. The doll sitting on top stared straight at me, its glass eyes glowing a furious red. And the worst part? Every time I blinked, its gaze shifted. Like it was alive. Like it knew me. The card beside it began to twitch. The scribbles on it bled and twisted until new words carved themselves into the paper, letter by letter. A single line stared back at me. Choose, yourself. Or another? My stomach dropped. Did this mean I had to sacrifice someone else in order to escape? But I was the only one here. Unless, no. The thought clawed its way into my mind before I could stop it. What if another didn't mean someone here? What if it meant someone I knew, someone close, dragged into this nightmare because of me? The laughter came next. High-pitched, broken, and wrong. It filled the attic, echoing from the walls, until it sounded like dozens of children had surrounded me, laughing and sobbing at the same time. The sound twisted, warping into something inhuman, like their throats were being slit mid-giggle. And then the doll moved. Its stiff arm snapped upward, pointing directly at me. On the table, new letters burned into the wood, glowing crimson like fresh blood. Time, 30 seconds. My hands trembled. If I chose myself, my blood would feed whatever this thing was. If I chose another, I would have to damn someone else to this nightmare. The question carved itself into my skull, each word slicing deeper than the last. If it were you, who would you choose? The card on the table was breathing. At least, that's what it looked like. The letters twitched and warped until a new line bled across its surface. The loser will vanish. Forever. I stumbled backward, but the room shrank with every step. The walls pressed in, the shadows clung to my shoulders, icy enough to bite straight into my bones. Then the doll blinked. A sharp, splintering crack, like glass shattering, came from deep inside its chest. And then, a skeletal hand pushed out from its mouth. Clutched in its crooked fingers was a single die. It rolled across the wooden table, the sound scraping like chains being dragged through a basement. 6. The ceiling above rattled violently. From the dark, a child's whisper slithered into my ear, "You are number 6. If you lose, you vanish first." My throat closed. Panic ripped through me. Lose? What does that even mean? How do I play? I screamed. No answer. Only the sound, knock, 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 echoing from all 4 walls. Like a countdown. When I looked back at the table, I froze. 3 tiny wooden doors had appeared. Each one carved with a strange symbol. A skull. A hand. An eye. I had to choose. But if I chose wrong, would I disappear? Would I be swallowed by the dark? Or worse, would I become part of the game itself? If you're shivering the way I was right then, hit subscribe. Because this blood-soaked game has only just begun. And I fear the final price will be far more horrifying than you could ever imagine. I stood in the center of the round room. In my hand, the rusted knife weighed heavy, like it carried my entire fate. Before me, familiar faces stared back. Friends. Family. The ones I once loved. A voice, cold and hollow, slithered through the air. "Only one is allowed to live." I screamed. I begged. I sobbed like a lunatic clawing at the edges of sanity. But the darkness only answered with a hoarse, broken laughter. My hand trembled as I raised the knife. I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill them. I couldn't turn myself into a monster. That left only one choice. Me. I spun the blade toward my chest. Gasps erupted from every corner of the room. A blinding light swallowed everything, and then, I drove it in. Agony ripped through my chest. Blood gushed out, scorching hot, but my soul felt strangely light. As my eyes fluttered closed, the voice whispered one last time, "You have lost. You chose death. And from this moment on, the world will forget you ever existed." I collapsed onto the cold floor, my breath slipping away. But what I saw last wasn't darkness. It was them. My loved ones, each of them slowly dissolving, piece by piece, like ash scattered by an invisible wind. The truth hit me like a curse. Even my sacrifice could not stop the game. The price was all of us. What do you think? Is there any escape from this death game? Don't forget to subscribe. Because the next part, I'll be telling you the secrets that await on the other side. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in my body. The knife was still buried in my chest. My corpse lay on the cold floor, motionless. But I was standing, watching. The round room was gone. Instead, I found myself in an endless corridor of doors. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Each marked with symbols I didn't understand, skulls, hands, eyes. And stranger things that twisted when I stared too long. Behind one door, I heard children laughing. Behind another, a woman sobbing. And from somewhere deep in the hall, something scraped its claws against the walls. Then the voice returned. Not distant this time. Right behind me. "You chose death. So now, you will serve." A freezing hand clamped down on my shoulder. I turned, but there was nothing. Only shadows writhing, taking shapes and unshaping themselves. The corridor pulsed, like it was alive, and I finally understood, this wasn't an escape. It was recruitment. I wasn't a player anymore. I was becoming part of the game. The first door creaked open by itself. A pale child stepped out, holding a bloody die in her tiny hand. She looked up at me and whispered, "Your turn. You'll guide the next one." And before I could answer, my mouth moved on its own. The words that came out weren't mine. Only one is allowed to live. The first thing I saw when I woke up was the table. A deck of cards. A dice. And a note that read, "Play, or vanish." I didn't remember how I got here. One second I was walking home, the next, this room, this smell of iron and damp stone. Then I noticed him. A man standing at the far end of the room, his face hidden in the shadows. He didn't move. Didn't blink. But I swear, his eyes followed me wherever I went. When he spoke, his voice shook the air. Cold. Inhuman. Only one survives. The words sent a shiver down my spine. But what made me freeze wasn't his voice. It was the way, for just a split second, I saw his lips tremble. Like he didn't want to say it. Like something inside him was fighting back. "Wait, who are you?" I whispered. His expression cracked. For a heartbeat, I saw pain in his eyes. Then his face twisted back into something else. Something that wasn't him. He slammed the table. The dice rattled. "Choose. Now." But in the silence that followed, I heard another voice. Softer. Desperate. "Don't play. Please. Run before it takes you too." I looked around. No one else was here. The voice wasn't echoing from the walls. It was leaking. From him. The host. The man half devoured by the game. And suddenly I understood, he wasn't just running the game. He was trapped inside it, just like me. The room shook. The host, no, the man, clutched his head with both hands, his scream splitting the silence like glass shattering. One voice thundered, "Obey the rules. Only one survives." The other bled through his teeth, ragged and human. "Stop. Don't let it win. Don't play their game." I froze, torn between the two versions of him fighting for control. His shadow stretched and warped on the walls, twisting into shapes that shouldn't exist, teeth, claws, eyes that blinked in places where skin should have been. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. The game wasn't just hosted by him. The game was inside him. The dice on the table rattled again, though I hadn't touched them. The cards flipped open, one by one, as if unseen hands were forcing the round to begin. That's when I remembered the note. Play, or vanish. But what if there was another way? What if instead of playing, I rewrote the rules? I reached for the deck. My hands trembled as I shuffled, but instead of dealing the way the game wanted, I scattered the cards across the floor. The host's body convulsed. He let out a howl that was two voices at once, one screaming in rage, the other crying in relief. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I had done it. But then the walls bled. Every number carved into the stone began to glow, burning red. And I heard it whisper, from everywhere and nowhere. "You broke the pattern. You think you can win? Wrong. Now the game will feed." The host fell to his knees, his face flickering between monster and man. He looked at me with eyes full of horror and mouthed the words. "Run. Before it chooses you." And that's when I realized. The moment I tried to bend the rules, I wasn't a player anymore. I was becoming the next piece on the board. The air was heavy, almost alive, pressing down on me. My arms shook as veins crawled across my skin, glowing faintly like burning symbols. I gasped. The cards on the floor weren't just paper anymore, they fused into my flesh, etching rules into me. The host staggered forward, his face torn between two selves. The human side bled from his eyes, whispering. "Don't let it in. Fight it. Don't let it mark you." But the other half of him, the monstrous voice, laughed. "Yes. Let the game claim you." One more piece added to the board. I tried to claw the glowing marks off my arm, but the harder I fought, the deeper they burned. My own blood spilled onto the stone floor, and instead of soaking in, it moved, slithering toward the center of the room, forming new symbols. The host fell beside me, grabbing my wrist. His human voice returned, desperate. "Listen. If you want to live, you must sacrifice me. Stab me. End me, and maybe it'll release you." I froze. My hand clenched the rusted knife. The same one he once held before he became the host. But then, something else whispered from the darkness, closer to my ear than any human could stand. "Kill him. And you take his place." The blade shook in my grip. If I stabbed him, I might survive. But I might also become the next host. And if I didn't, I might not survive long enough to find out. I screamed and dropped the knife. My whole body convulsed as the marks spread faster, crawling up my neck. The host's human side howled in rage, not at me, but at the monster inside him. "See? He chose mercy. He chose to resist you." The monstrous side snarled, its voice cracking the stone. "Mercy means weakness. And weakness means hunger." Suddenly, every face of my loved ones appeared again in the shadows around me. Family, friends, people I knew had died long ago. They stared blankly, whispering, "Choose. Choose. Choose." I fell to my knees, sobbing. But then I realized something horrifying. This game wasn't about killing others. It was about killing yourself, piece by piece, until nothing human remained. The host crawled toward me, bleeding, half his face human, half consumed. He pressed the knife back into my hand. His human eye glistened. Please. Free me. Don't let the game win. But his other half laughed, teeth splitting wider than his skull could hold. Do it. End him. The moment you do, you'll know the truth of what you really are. My hands trembled. I raised the knife. And for the first time, I didn't know who I was about to kill, him. Or myself. The moment the knife pierced flesh, the room erupted in light. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My vision blurred as the symbols on the walls rearranged themselves. For the first time, I could read them. The host is never chosen. The host is made. One survives. Only to suffer eternity. I screamed. The knife wasn't in him anymore, it was in me. My chest split open with burning fire, and the voice that once tormented him now slithered into my skull. The host collapsed, his body disintegrating into dust. For 1 second before vanishing, his human voice whispered, "I'm sorry. It's yours now." And then he was gone. The chains appeared around my wrists. The floor lit up beneath me. The shadows bowed in silence. I realized too late. I wasn't the player anymore. I was the new host. Time passed differently after that. Minutes felt like years. The next victim appeared in the room, confused, terrified, just as I once was. I opened my mouth, and the rule spilled out of me like poison. Only one survives. The others must fall. But inside, deep within, my real self screamed, clawing, begging to stop. I felt every word like nails driven into my skull. The game wasn't just about survival. It was a cycle. A curse. And I was the next chain holding it in place. But sometimes, in the flicker of a candle or the silence between heartbeats, my human self would surface, whispering to the new players, "Don't trust the rules. Don't trust me. There's another way." And then the monster would drag me back down. The last thing I remember writing, scratching into the floor with my broken nails, was this: "If you're reading this, you're already in the game. Don't play by its rules. But if you try to break them, make sure you're ready to pay the price." I don't know how long I've been here. I don't even know if I'm still me. Sometimes I hear the laughter. Sometimes, I hear my own voice shouting in the dark. And tonight, for the first time, I heard it knock again. 3 times. Then 2. Then silence. I whispered back. And something whispered with me. The game never ends. It just waits for the next one to take my place. Shh. Don't breathe too loudly. Don't let them hear you. If you want to survive this game, you'll need a key. And the key is the subscribe button right below this video. Click it before the candle burns out, and before your name disappears from this world.